Have you ever found yourself staring at something so impossibly old, so unshakably strange, that your mind feels like it is about to burst with questions? Imagine standing in the quiet fields of southern England, the fog rolling across the land like a ghostly blanket. Out of the mist, massive stones rise, gray, scarred, and silent. They do not move, they do not speak, and yet they shout at your imagination with 1,000 mysteries. This is Stonehenge, and tonight you and I are about to unlock its strangest, weirdest theories. But before we take that leap into mystery, I want to ask you something simple. Take just a few seconds, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. And subscribe if you are ready to wander through the shadows of history with me. Because once we begin, there is no turning back. The stones will demand your attention, your imagination, and perhaps even your dreams when you try to sleep tonight. Ready? Good. Let us step into the circle. The first thing you feel is the silence. Birds may call in the distance, wind may rush across the plains, but within the stone circle, sound seems to fall flat, as if the air itself has been thickened by time. The stones are arranged in a shape that does not make sense at first, massive pillars topped with crossbars like doorways that lead nowhere. If you were an ancient traveler walking through these stones at sunset, would you have thought they were gates to another world, gates to a place where the living and the dead could meet, or perhaps where humans could call down the power of the sky? And here's where your imagination starts to run wild. Because the truth is, no one really knows. No written records tell us who built Stonehenge or why. Archaeologists give us dates, measurements, fragments of bone and pottery, but not answers. What you are left with is silence and speculation. And speculation is where the weirdest theories are born. Take a step closer to the stones. Touch the surface, cold and rough under your hand. Think about how heavy each of these blocks is, some weighing up to 25 tons. And then ask yourself, how did they even get here? The nearest quarry is miles away, and some of the stones, the famous blue stones, came from Wales, over 150 miles to the west. That is like dragging a refrigerator from New York to Philadelphia. Except your refrigerator is 20 tons, and you do not have wheels, cranes, or trucks. You just have ropes, wooden sledges, and maybe a few hundred friends who definitely regret saying yes when you asked for help. And yet, here they are, perfectly aligned, deliberately placed, unshakably present. The stones have been standing for over 4,000 years, long before the pyramids of Giza were finished, long before the Roman Empire rose and fell, long before anyone you have ever heard of even existed. They have survived storms, wars, invasions, plagues, and centuries of human curiosity. Imagine being a farmer in medieval England, plowing your fields, glancing up at those strange rocks, and wondering if giants had built them, or if demons had carried them in the night. Imagine being a soldier marching past in the 1600s, your musket heavy on your shoulder, feeling that odd tingle down your spine as the stones loomed in the distance. Silent witnesses to your fear. Now imagine this, you spending one night there alone inside the circle. Would you feel calm, as if wrapped in the protection of something sacred? Or would you feel watched, as if the stones were eyes, staring down at you, judging? Would you even dare to fall asleep with those massive silhouettes standing above you? The strange thing is, thousands of people still do this. Every summer solstice, crowds gather at Stonehenge to celebrate the rising sun, just as they believe ancient people once did. The first rays of light cut perfectly across the stones, lining up in a way that seems far too precise to be an accident. Was Stonehenge built to worship the sun, to mark the turning of the seasons, or was it something far stranger, something that modern science still struggles to explain? You see, the weirdest thing about Stonehenge is not just its size or its mystery, but the way it refuses to be solved. Every time someone offers a theory, another question pops up. Every time we think we understand, the stones seem to laugh at us, mocking our small minds from across the centuries. And that is what makes this story so irresistible. You and I are about to wander through a maze of ideas, some brilliant, some absurd, and some that will make you laugh out loud. Because humans, when faced with silence, invent stories. And Stonehenge is the greatest silence of all. So settle in, relax, maybe even turn off the lights if you are brave. Tonight, we are going to chase shadows through time. Tonight, we are going to listen to the strangest whispers that have ever been spoken about Stonehenge. And by the end, you might not have answers, but you will have questions you will never forget. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. The year is somewhere around 3000 BCE. You are standing on the windswept plains of what we now call Wiltshire, England. There are no cities here, no paved roads, no castles, no cathedrals, just endless grasslands, scattered forests, and the distant smoke of small human settlements. The world is raw, the air heavy with smoke and the smell of damp earth. And in the middle of this primitive landscape, people are moving giant stones with a determination that defies belief. That is the first layer of Stonehenge's mystery, the time it was built. You live in a world where copper tools are rare, bronze is still an idea waiting to be discovered, and iron is thousands of years away. Your ancestors do not have wheels sturdy enough to carry these stones. They do not have cranes or pulleys, no concrete or steel, and yet, somehow, they are arranging stones that weigh as much as 20 elephants in a circle so precise that 4,000 years later, NASA engineers would nod in respect. How, why, who gave them the vision to even attempt such madness? The historical records, unfortunately, are silent. Writing has not reached this part of Europe yet. If someone carved the story into wood or clay, it has long since rotted back into the earth. All that remains are bones, shards of pottery, and the stones themselves, standing mute like enormous question marks. It is like walking into a theater after the play has ended. The actors gone, the lights out, the stage empty. You know something important happened here, but you can only guess at what the story was. And here's the strange part. When archaeologists dig around Stonehenge, they find signs of human life, burials, animal bones, bits of tools. This was not just a random pile of rocks. This was a place people came to generation after generation, for reasons we still can't agree on. Imagine a sacred ground, passed from father to son, mother to daughter, through countless lifetimes. A place so important that entire communities would gather here, dragging stones across rivers and hills, chanting songs we will never hear, to create something they could not have fully explained themselves. Now let us pull back the veil of history even further. Stonehenge was not built all at once, it was built in stages. The earliest part, a circular ditch with wooden posts, goes back nearly 5,000 years. Then came the smaller bluestones from Wales, hauled across mountains and rivers. Finally, the massive sarsen stones. The great pillars were raised, crowned with horizontal lintels like teeth biting into the sky. You could almost imagine the builders looking at each other and saying, "We are not just making a circle, we are making a monument that will outlive us all." And they were right. Think about the courage it took. In your world, survival is a daily struggle. Food is hunted, grown, or foraged. Winter could kill you. Disease could wipe out your family. And yet, your community spends generations building this giant puzzle of stone. Would you have joined them? Would you have hauled ropes and sledges under the hot sun, bruising your shoulders, blistering your hands, just to move one stone a few feet? Or would you have looked at the whole project and muttered, "Are you kidding me? We could be farming instead"? That is where the mystery deepens. Something made people believe this was worth it. Something made them spend centuries building a monument no one today can fully explain. Was it religion? Was it science? Was it magic? Or was it all of them at once? Even now, as historians try to reconstruct the lives of these Neolithic people, the picture remains blurred. We know they farmed, they raised animals. They buried their dead with care. We know they had rituals because ritual objects are found near the stones. But beyond that, their thoughts, their fears, their dreams, they are hidden behind a curtain we cannot lift. The only thing that pierces the veil is Stonehenge itself, like a voice echoing across 5 millennia. And here's the funny thing, every culture that came after them also tried to explain Stonehenge, and every explanation says more about the people making it than about the stones themselves. To the medieval peasants, it was a playground for giants. To the early Christians, it was pagan and dangerous. To the Victorians, it was a romantic ruin, perfect for poetry and picnics. And to us, it is everything at once. A mystery, a science problem, a tourist attraction, and a cosmic riddle we still have not solved. So when you look at Stonehenge, you are not just seeing rocks. You are seeing a mirror that reflects every age, every belief, every attempt at meaning that humans have projected onto it. The builders are long gone, their stories dust in the wind, but the monument endures, forcing us to wonder. And maybe that is the real reason they built it. Not just for themselves, but for you, thousands of years later, to stand in the mist and feel the same questions burn in your chest. Now, let us face the question that never fails to leave people shaking their heads. How on earth did these stones get here? It is one thing to carve or shape a rock. It is another thing entirely to drag one that weighs 25 tons across rivers, valleys, and hills without so much as a wheelbarrow. And yet, as you stand here inside the circle, the evidence is impossible to ignore. These stones did not just fall out of the sky, someone somehow brought them here. Let us start with the smaller ones, the so-called blue stones. They are not actually blue, but under certain light they shine with a bluish tint. These stones have been traced all the way back to the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. That is like asking you to drag your refrigerator across the entire state of New Jersey. Only your fridge weighs several tons and your neighbors are really tired of your nonsense. Some archaeologists believe these stones were hauled on wooden sledges, pulled by ropes, and dragged onto rafts to float down rivers. Others suggest they were rolled on logs, inch by inch. Either way, the effort would have been enormous. You would need hundreds of people, months of labor, and let us not forget, you still had to eat, farm, and survive. Imagine signing up for that work shift. Sorry, can't hunt today. I have got to push a 10-ton rock over a mountain. And then there are the sarsen stones, the giants. These are the massive, towering blocks that form the iconic arches of Stonehenge. Each one weighs up to 25 tons, and the tallest stands over 20 feet high. The nearest source for these stones is about 20 miles away. 20 miles, picture dragging a school bus, made entirely of stone, across rough, uneven ground, with no wheels and no horsepower. If you had to do that today, even with modern trucks, you would probably quit after the first mile. Some theories suggest the builders used sledges and greased the ground with animal fat, turning the earth into a kind of slippery track. Others propose they built wooden tracks and rolled the stones on logs. One team of modern volunteers tried to replicate the feat using ropes and manpower, and guess what? They actually managed it, moving a few tons at a time. Of course, it took an entire group of strong, sweaty people who probably regretted volunteering halfway through. But it showed that, in theory, our ancestors really could have done it. And yet, the mystery deepens, because it was not just about moving the stones. They had to lift them, too. Those great lintels, the horizontal stones that sit on top of the pillars, were not just plopped there by accident. They were carefully shaped, fitted with joints like giant Lego blocks, and then somehow raised 20 feet into the air. Picture this, a group of Neolithic builders, covered in mud, shouting orders, trying to balance ropes and wooden frames while inching a 10-ton slab up into place. It must have been terrifying, dangerous, and maybe even hilarious in its own chaotic way. Imagine the arguments, push harder, no, not that way, oh no, run. Here's where the weird theories sneak in. Some say giants did it, literal giants, beings of immense strength who could lift stones like pebbles. Medieval legends claimed a race of enormous people once roamed the land, and Stonehenge was their playground. Others take it further, suggesting aliens lent a hand, using levitation beams or anti-gravity technology. It sounds ridiculous, but when you stare at those stones long enough, the impossible starts to feel just a little bit plausible. But maybe the real secret lies in something simpler: determination. Imagine living in a world where the sun and moon ruled your life, where the seasons dictated whether you lived or starved. Building a monument to align with the heavens might not just have been important, it might have been a matter of survival. When you believe the sun needs to rise exactly in the right place to bless your crops, you will move mountains or at least drag a few stones. So here's the question for you: if you were there thousands of years ago and your tribe asked you to help move a 20-ton block of stone, would you join them? Would you strain your muscles, blister your hands, and risk your life for something you might never understand? Or would you be the one sneaking away at night, muttering, "Yeah, you guys have fun with that. I will stick to gathering berries"? Either way, the stones got here. They were dragged, lifted, fitted, and aligned with a precision that still astonishes us. And when you stand among them, feeling the weight of their presence, the question lingers: was it human will, supernatural help, or something in between that made it possible? Picture yourself sitting by a fire on a dark medieval night. The wind howls through the thatched roof, and outside the circle of flames, shadows flicker and dance. A storyteller leans forward, eyes wide, and begins to whisper about the stones on the plain. They were not built by men, he insists. They were the work of giants. For centuries, that was one of the most popular explanations. The idea made sense to people who looked at Stonehenge and thought, there is no way ordinary humans could have done this. Imagine living in a world without cranes, without physics textbooks, without the comforting voice of a documentary narrator. All you had were your eyes, your imagination, and the sheer scale of those stones. They were huge, heavy, unexplainable. So of course, giants. In British folklore, giants are everywhere. They shape landscapes, carve valleys, hurl boulders, and stomp across mountains. One legend says a giant carried the stones from Africa, placed them on a mountain in Ireland, and later moved them to Salisbury Plain with the help of Merlin the wizard. Yes, that Merlin from the King Arthur legends. According to this tale, Merlin used his magical powers to transport the stones across the sea because, apparently, even giants get tired of heavy lifting. Another version tells of a battle between giants. They hurled enormous rocks at each other in rage, and where the stones landed, Stonehenge was born. It is an image both terrifying and hilarious, like the world's most dangerous dodgeball game. Imagine the poor humans watching from the sidelines, clutching their children, muttering, "Well, there goes the wheat field." And then there is the tale of the devil himself. Some medieval storytellers swore that the devil brought the stones from Ireland, laughing as he placed them on the plain. He tricked a woman into revealing how many stones there were, and when she said the number, he declared that no one would ever know how they came to be arranged. But a clever friar overheard him and shouted, "That is a lie." Furious, the devil threw one of the stones at the friar. The stone struck him but did not kill him, and that stone is said to still bear the mark of the friar's head. To this day, people point to one particular rock in Stonehenge and call it the friar's heel. Now pause for a second. You are hearing these stories, sitting in a smoky hut centuries ago. Would you believe them? Would you nod along, imagining giants lumbering across the hills? Or would you roll your eyes and think, "Yeah, right, Merlin flew in with a magic crane"? Remember, in those times, stories were more than entertainment. They were explanations. They filled the gaps where science had no answers, and when you stood in front of Stonehenge, the gaps were enormous. But here's where the mystery twists again, because when modern scientists try to explain Stonehenge, their theories sometimes sound almost as unbelievable as the old legends. Friction-reducing animal fat smeared on wooden sledges, floating 20-ton stones on rafts down rivers, raising massive lintels with wooden scaffolds and manpower alone. If you did not know better, you might laugh and say, that is as crazy as Merlin, maybe. Just maybe, the old stories are not as far from the truth as we think. Let us add one more layer, the supernatural. Some New Age believers argue that Stonehenge could not have been built without energy manipulation. They claim the stones themselves hum with vibrations, that ley lines, mystical paths of power across the earth, converge at Stonehenge, guiding the builders. To them, Stonehenge is not just a pile of rocks. It is a battery, a portal, a spiritual engine humming quietly on the plain. Now picture yourself spending one night alone inside the circle. Midnight approaches, the wind whistles, and the stones loom above you. In the silence, you hear a low hum, Or maybe it is just your heartbeat pounding in your ears. Do you believe it is energy from the earth, a leftover echo of giants? Or the laughter of Merlin echoing through time? Would you sleep soundly, or would you feel your body tense, expecting something or someone ancient to reach out through the dark? Whether it is giants, wizards, devils, or unseen forces, the truth is this: people always reach for explanations that match their fears and hopes. For some, Stonehenge was a playground of giants. For others, it was proof of the devil's mischief. And for many today, it is still a place where the line between science and myth blurs, where reality is just strange enough to keep the supernatural alive. Stand quietly inside the stone circle as the first light of dawn touches the horizon. The air is cold, your breath visible in the morning mist. Slowly, the sun begins to rise, and you notice something uncanny. The light slices perfectly through the gap between the stones, illuminating a direct path into the heart of the monument. It does not feel random. It feels intentional, like the stones were designed to catch the sun itself. This is the heart of one of the most enduring theories about Stonehenge, that it was an ancient observatory, a giant calendar carved from stone. Imagine living in a world without clocks, without GPS, without even a reliable written calendar. You would need the sky to tell you everything: when to plant, when to harvest, when winter would arrive. The sun and moon were not just pretty lights. They were life and death. Archaeologists have long marveled at how the stones align with astronomical events. The most famous example is the summer solstice, when the sun rises exactly over the heel stone and shines straight into the center of the circle. Thousands of people still gather each year to watch the spectacle, cheering as if the sky itself is performing a ritual for them. But here's the thing: those alignments also occur at the winter solstice, when the sun sets in a perfect line with the stones. For the builders, these were not just pretty coincidences. They may have been sacred markers. Now ask yourself this: if you lived 4,500 years ago, how would you know when the seasons turned? How would you prepare for the long, deadly winter if you could not measure time? Stonehenge may have been their solution, a massive, immovable calendar that never lied. Each year, when the sun hit a certain point between the stones, the tribe would know: the solstice is here, the cycle continues, and it is time to act. Some researchers even argue that Stonehenge could track lunar eclipses by mapping the positions of the stones and comparing them to cycles of the moon. They believe the builders had a primitive but powerful understanding of astronomy. Imagine that thousands of years before telescopes, before Galileo, before NASA, people were already looking up at the sky and carving its movements into the earth with stone. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some skeptics say the alignments are coincidences, that with enough stones, you are bound to line up with something in the sky. Others point out that the monument went through so many phases of construction that any precision may have been accidental. Still, the more you look, the harder it is to dismiss. When you stand there at sunrise on the solstice, it does not feel accidental. It feels like the builders reached across time to tap you on the shoulder and whisper, "See, we knew the secrets of the sky." Let us take a step further. What if Stonehenge was not just a calendar, but a theater of light and shadow? Imagine the tribe gathering on the longest day of the year. Drums beating, voices rising in chant, as the first ray of light cuts through the stones and bathes the circle in gold. Children gape, elders nod solemnly, and somewhere, a shaman raises their arms to the heavens. To them, this is not just science, it is magic, proof that the universe is listening. And here's the question for you: would you have believed it? If you were a farmer watching the sun fall perfectly into place, would you see it as evidence of clever engineering? Or as the hand of the gods? Remember, for them, there was no difference. The sky and the divine were one and the same. Now let us sprinkle in a touch of humor, because humans are humans no matter the century. Imagine being the poor soul assigned to make sure the stones were in the right place. Move it a little to the left. No, too much. Now the sun's rising behind a cow. The pressure must have been enormous. Get it right, and you have aligned your tribe with the cosmos. Get it wrong, and everyone starves because you mistimed the harvest. No pressure, right? Some modern scientists have even tried to recreate the alignments digitally using computer models. The results are startling. The builders were not just guessing. They had a clear understanding of the sun's path, the moon's cycles, and maybe even the rhythms of the stars. They may not have had telescopes, but they had patience, observation, and generations of accumulated knowledge. And yet, the mystery remains. Was Stonehenge purely scientific, or was it spiritual? Was it a calendar or a temple? Was it both? The answer may not matter. Because for the people who built it, there was no line between science and religion, between observation and worship. The sky was a god, and the stones were their prayer. So next time you glance at a clock, or check your phone to see the date, think about this. Thousands of years ago, your ancestors did the same thing, only their clock was a circle of stones standing against the horizon. And in some ways, it is still ticking. Now the air inside the circle feels heavier. You look down at the ground, and instead of just grass and dirt, you begin to imagine something darker. Shadows of rituals long past, echoes of drums, the smell of fire and blood. Because one of the most chilling theories about Stonehenge is that it was a site of human sacrifice. Archaeologists digging around the stones have uncovered human bones, some with signs of trauma, others burned in strange patterns. They have also found animal remains, deliberately buried, as if offerings had been made. To some scholars, this is proof that Stonehenge was more than a calendar or a monument. It was a temple, and temples in the ancient world often demanded blood. Picture it. The tribe gathers on the solstice, the stones glowing in the last light of day. A fire roars at the center, casting long, flickering shadows. People chant, drums pound, and at the heart of it all, a chosen victim kneels, trembling. Maybe it was a prisoner, maybe a volunteer, maybe someone believed to carry sickness that had to be purged. The shaman raises a blade of stone or bone. The crowd holds its breath, and with one strike, blood spills onto the earth. The stones absorb the cries, silent witnesses to a drama we can only imagine. It sounds brutal, terrifying, and yet, to the people of that time, it might have been sacred. Sacrifice was not murder in their eyes. It was a gift. Blood was life, and giving it back to the gods was the highest offering. If you lived in that world, would you have been afraid, or would you have felt honored to be chosen? Believing your death would bring rain, fertility, and survival for your people. Of course, historians debate this fiercely. Some argue that the bones found at Stonehenge could simply be burials, not sacrifices. Others say the trauma marks might be from battles, not rituals. But the theory persists partly because it fits the atmosphere. Stand in Stonehenge at dusk, when the stones cast tall shadows, and tell me you can't imagine something primal, something bloody, something desperate happening there. And then there is the storytelling flair humans always add. Medieval writers loved the idea of Stonehenge as a sacrificial altar. Some claimed druids slit throats upon the stones, their white robes drenched in crimson as they raised their arms to the sky. Modern movies and novels happily run with this imagery, Stonehenge as a place where virgins were sacrificed, where chanting cults summoned ancient gods. It is the kind of theory that makes historians groan and filmmakers grin. Still, there is a strange power in the idea, because whether it is true or not, the possibility changes the way you look at the stones. Instead of neutral, silent blocks, they become witnesses to violence and devotion. Each groove, each stain, each echo of sound feels like it could hide a memory of fire and blood. Let us inject a bit of humor to cut the tension. Imagine you are in the tribe, and the shaman starts looking around for a volunteer. You immediately avoid eye contact, suddenly fascinated by the grass at your feet. Oh no, do not pick me, I am busy tomorrow, but maybe your friend beside you whispers, if it helps the crops. Maybe it is worth it. How would you react? Shake your head and run, or accept your fate with grim pride? The truth is, we will never know for sure. Maybe Stonehenge was a place of sacrifice, maybe it was simply a cemetery, maybe it was something else entirely. But the theory endures because it taps into something deep inside us, the fear of ritual, the weight of ancient religion, and the haunting image of blood on stone. So when you stand inside the circle, and the wind whistles like a distant chant. Ask yourself, do you hear echoes of prayers or screams? Stand inside Stonehenge with your eyes closed. The wind brushes against your ears, carrying faint whispers. Now imagine striking one of those massive stones with a hammer. Instead of a dull thud, some of the rocks ring like a bell. It is not your imagination. Tests have shown that certain stones at Stonehenge produce strange, resonant tones when struck, as if the monument itself were a giant instrument. This discovery has led some researchers to propose a curious idea. What if Stonehenge was not only an astronomical calendar, not only a temple, but also a kind of prehistoric sound machine? Archaeologists and acousticians have experimented inside the circle and noticed how sound behaves differently here. Claps, shouts, or drum beats seem to echo in unusual ways, bouncing and blending until the air feels alive with vibration. Some call it the acoustic effect of the stones, a design that could amplify chants or music during rituals. Picture yourself in that setting thousands of years ago. The tribe gathers, torches flickering, drums pounding in rhythm. A chant begins, voices layered together, deep and hypnotic. As the sound rises, the stones catch it, twist it, magnify it. Suddenly, you feel the vibrations in your chest, your skin prickling, your heartbeat syncing with the rhythm. It is not just a song anymore, it is an experience, a trance, something that could make ordinary humans feel connected to gods. Some even suggest the stones were chosen precisely because of their sound. The blue stones, in particular, are known to ring when struck, earning them the nickname lithophones. Stone instruments. Could it be that the builders intentionally dragged these rocks from Wales not only for their size or color, but because they sang? Imagine the elders striking the stones during a ritual, creating eerie music that carried across the plain. For a people without radios or orchestras, this would have been otherworldly. And here's the strange twist. Sound has always been linked to the supernatural. In many cultures, drums summon spirits, chants call gods, and music bridges the gap between human and divine. If Stonehenge was built to harness sound, then it was not just a monument, it was a stage for transcendent experiences. Now let us bring in some humor, because you can't help but picture it. Imagine a group of Neolithic musicians, the world's first rock band, literally banging on rocks. One guy's out of rhythm, the shaman glares, and someone mutters, "If you mess this up, the sun won't rise tomorrow." No pressure. Still, the acoustic theory is fascinating because it connects something tangible, science, with something intangible, faith. Experiments have shown that Stonehenge's layout can enhance certain frequencies, making voices sound deeper, chants more resonant. To an ancient listener, this might have felt like the stones themselves were speaking. And here's the question for you: if you were there, and the sound of drums and chants swelled until the stones seemed to vibrate with life, would you believe the gods were answering? Would you feel awe, fear, or simply the beat in your bones pulling you into the ritual? Some visitors today even claim they can sense it. Stand in the circle on a windy day, and the air hums, as if the stones are whispering. Tap one gently, and the vibration lingers longer than you expect. Is it just physics or something more? One last thought: sound has the power to change how we feel. It can make us calm, frightened, joyful, or sorrowful. If Stonehenge amplified those feelings in the past, then its builders created not just a monument, but a tool for shaping human emotion. And that is a power almost as mysterious as the stones themselves. Look up at the night sky above Stonehenge. Thousands of stars shimmer, scattered across the black canvas. For the people who built these stones, those stars were not distant suns. They were gods, guides, and mysteries. Now take a step back, tilt your head, and imagine this: what if Stonehenge itself was designed by beings from those stars? Sounds wild, does not it? And yet, the alien theory has been one of the most enduring explanations for Stonehenge's mystery. The reasoning is simple. When humans can't figure out how something was built, we often say, aliens must have done it. From the pyramids of Egypt to the Nazca lines in Peru. This idea pops up again and again. And Stonehenge, it is the poster child of extraterrestrial speculation. Why, for starters, the precision. The stones align with the solstices so perfectly that many believe it is beyond the abilities of Neolithic farmers. How could people without metal tools, wheels, or written math create a monument that tracks celestial events? Some argue that the knowledge had to come from elsewhere, from beings who traveled across the galaxy. Then there is the sheer effort. Dragging 20-ton stones across miles of land feels almost impossible, even with modern machinery. Surely, skeptics say humans alone could not have done it, unless they had help. Help from a species with technology we still do not understand. Anti-gravity beams, tractor rays, interstellar cranes, the theories get creative fast. And of course, there is the symbolism. To some, Stonehenge looks like a landing pad, a circular arrangement of massive stones visible from above. Imagine an alien craft hovering, seeing the stones below as a signal, land here. This is where we meet. Others suggest the stones form a kind of star map, pointing to constellations important to alien visitors. Suddenly, the monument becomes not just a temple for humans, but a message board for extraterrestrials. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, if you were living thousands of years ago, and you saw a strange light descend from the sky, hovering above the fields, would not you carve that memory into stone? Wouldn't you build something to honor the beings who visited? Maybe Stonehenge is not just an observatory. It is a souvenir of first contact. Of course, most archaeologists roll their eyes at this. They point out that humans are clever, determined, and fully capable of moving big rocks when they have enough time and teamwork. They argue that alien theories take credit away from our ancestors, who deserve respect for their ingenuity. Still, the alien idea lingers because it satisfies something deeper, the yearning to believe we are not alone. And let us be honest, it is also fun. Imagine a group of aliens landing on Earth 4,000 years ago. One looks around and says, "Nice place. Let us leave them some building instructions." Another grumbles, again, "Didn't we just help with the pyramids?" And a third sighs, "Fine, but this time let us make a circle, not a triangle. Keep it fresh." Suddenly, Stonehenge feels like part of a cosmic architectural tour. But here's the catch. Even if aliens did not build Stonehenge, the fact that we imagine they might have says something about us. It shows our hunger for connection, our need to believe in something bigger than ourselves. It also reveals how awe-inspiring the monument truly is. After all, when faced with something that seems impossible, our first instinct is to look to the stars. So here's the question for you. If you were told tomorrow that scientists had proof Stonehenge was built with alien help, would you be surprised? Or secretly relieved? Would it make you feel small, knowing advanced beings once touched this earth? Or would it make you feel chosen, as if humanity was part of a larger story? The truth may never come, but tonight, as you stand under the stars, the stones looming like silent antennas, it is tempting to wonder, maybe, just maybe, Stonehenge really is a blueprint not from human hands but from the cosmos itself. Imagine standing alone inside Stonehenge at midnight. The moon hangs low, casting silver light across the stones. Shadows stretch like skeletal fingers across the ground. Suddenly, the air seems to shift. The circle feels less like a monument and more like a doorway. What if Stonehenge was not just built to track the sun and stars, but to open something far stranger, a gateway through time itself? It may sound like science fiction, but this theory has fascinated writers, mystics, and dreamers for centuries. The logic goes like this. Stonehenge's precise alignment with celestial events, its circular shape, and its enduring aura of mystery all suggest it could have been more than just symbolic. Some claim it was a literal time machine, a place where energy lines of the earth and the cosmos intersect, creating a portal to the past or future. Think about how the stones are arranged. Doorways leading nowhere, circles within circles. Doesn't it feel like the blueprint of something functional? Not just decorative, stand at the right spot, at the right moment of the year, say the solstice at dawn, and perhaps the veil between worlds thins. Step forward and who knows where or when you might end up. Now pause for a second and imagine this vividly. You walk through Stonehenge, and in an instant, the mist around you changes. One moment you see tourists in jeans and cameras. The next you are surrounded by warriors in animal skins, chanting around fires. You have fallen backwards 4,000 years. Would you run? Would you hide? Or would you watch in awe as the builders of Stonehenge perform the very rituals you have only read about? Or what if the gate swings the other way? What if stepping through sends you into the future, our future? Maybe the stones hum, the ground trembles. And suddenly you are standing in the same spot, but surrounded by towering machines, cities of glass, or worse, ruins where civilization has crumbled. Would you step back through, or would the portal close, leaving you stranded in a time you do not belong? Of course, mainstream science does not buy this. Archaeologists laugh at the idea of Neolithic farmers building a time machine. But then again, they also admit they do not fully understand why Stonehenge was built. When knowledge fails, imagination takes over. And let us be honest, Stonehenge looks like a time gate. It just does. The portal theory also ties into ley lines, those supposed mystical energy paths that crisscross the earth. Many believe Stonehenge sits at a junction where these lines meet, amplifying energy in ways we can't yet measure. What if the builders felt it? What if they stood here and sensed vibrations we can no longer perceive? For them, the stones may have been both a compass and a key. And here's a thought: if Stonehenge really were a time gate, who would it serve? Priests, leaders, ordinary villagers desperate to glimpse the future. Maybe the chosen few could step through to consult ancestors or even see unborn generations. Imagine knowing when the rains would come, when famine would strike, when enemies would attack, all because your priests had access to a doorway beyond time. Let us lighten it up for a moment. Picture this as a kind of cosmic mistake. A shaman says, "Stand exactly here at dawn, and you will meet the gods." Instead, someone trips and suddenly vanishes, reappearing in the 21st century at a McDonald's drive-thru. The poor guy is holding a stone axe, staring at French fries in total confusion. Humanity's first time traveler, and all he gets is fast food. But jokes aside, the time gate idea lingers because it reflects something deep inside us: the desire to escape time, to cheat mortality, to see what lies ahead or behind. Stonehenge, in its silent majesty, invites that kind of dreaming. So here's the question for you: if Stonehenge really were a portal, would you dare step through? Would you risk everything, family, friends, your own time, for the chance to walk into the unknown? And if you did, would you pray to go backwards, to glimpse the ancient world, or forwards, to see the fate of humanity? The stones do not answer. They stand, waiting, like a locked door with no handle. But as you walk away, you can't help glancing back, half expecting the circle to shimmer and open. And maybe one night, under the right sky, it still might. Step into the circle again, but this time do not think of sacrifice or portals. Instead, imagine Stonehenge as a place of healing. Not terror, not blood, but hope. Some researchers believe that people traveled great distances to come here, not to die, but to be cured. Archaeological digs have uncovered skeletons around Stonehenge with signs of illness, injury, and deformity. Many of these remains suggest people who had traveled from far away. Why would the sick and wounded come all this way, dragging themselves or being carried across rough terrain? The answer some propose: because Stonehenge was believed to be a sacred hospital. The key lies in the blue stones. These smaller stones, hauled from the Preseli Hills of Wales, were not just visually distinct. They were believed to have healing properties. Even today, folklore in Wales speaks of the magic of these stones. Their mineral composition may have given them a mysterious aura, and when struck, their ringing tones only added to the sense of power. For Neolithic people, these were not just rocks, they were medicine. Picture this: a mother brings her sick child to Stonehenge. She lays the child near the blue stones, whispers prayers, and waits as the shaman chants. The stones ring softly as hands drum against them, and the echoes carry into the night. Whether the child recovers or not, the ritual itself gives comfort, hope, and meaning. And in an age without doctors, sometimes that was enough. Others imagine Stonehenge as a kind of pilgrimage site. Just as medieval Christians walked for weeks to reach holy shrines, perhaps ancient people journeyed for days to reach the healing stones. Imagine the sight: carts carrying the injured, elders leaning on staffs, warriors limping from battle wounds, all converging on the circle in search of relief. It must have looked like the world's oldest emergency room, with patients lined up under the sky, waiting their turn. Of course, this theory has its critics. Skeptics argue that people did not drag stones 150 miles for healing powers, but for ritual or status. Still, the evidence of sick travelers found nearby is compelling. Something about Stonehenge drew them, and it was not just farming advice. Now imagine yourself there. You have been injured, your leg swollen from infection. The village healer tells you, go to the stones. They will cure you. You make the long journey, every step painful. Finally, you reach the circle. The stones tower above, humming faintly in the wind. You kneel, press your hands against the blue stone, and for a moment you feel warmth, whether from the sun, from faith, or from something beyond. Would you believe you were healed? Would you feel the power of the place flow through you? Here's where science and faith blur again. Maybe the stones had no healing power at all. Maybe what healed people was the belief itself, the placebo effect, thousands of years before modern psychology named it. When hundreds of people gather, chanting, singing, and focusing their hope on you, maybe your body responds. Maybe you actually do feel better. And let us not forget the humor. Picture the world's first waiting room at Stonehenge. A shaman holds up a stick, next patient, someone groans. I have been waiting since the last solstice, another mutters, do you take bone fractures or just stomach aches? It is a funny thought, but it makes Stonehenge feel almost human. An ancient place where people longed to feel better. Whether or not the stones really healed anyone, the theory endures because it adds a layer of compassion to the monument. Instead of only blood and mystery, it becomes a place of care where hope outweighed fear. And perhaps that is the most magical healing of all. Not the curing of disease, but the easing of despair. So when you stand among the stones, place your hand against the blue stone and close your eyes. Ask yourself, is this just a rock? Or is it a silent doctor, still waiting to heal across the ages? Stand inside Stonehenge, tilt your head back, and then let your mind wander far beyond the fields of Wiltshire. Imagine tracing invisible lines across the globe. Strangely enough, many of those lines land on other mysterious monuments, places that seem to echo Stonehenge, even though oceans and continents separate them. Could it be coincidence, or did ancient builders across the world follow some shared blueprint? Think first of the pyramids of Egypt. Towering, geometric, precise, just like Stonehenge, they seem far too advanced for the technology available at the time. Some theorists argue that both the pyramids and Stonehenge were built to align with the heavens, serving as giant cosmic markers. And here's the twist. Both structures appear to be connected to solstices and star patterns. We're two civilizations, thousands of miles apart, tapping into the same cosmic knowledge. Now, jump continents to South America. On the high plains of Peru lie the Nazca lines, enormous geoglyphs carved into the earth, visible only from the sky. Spirals, animals, straight lines that stretch for miles. No one knows exactly why they were made, but like Stonehenge, they seem to communicate with the heavens. Imagine an alien pilot looking down, Stonehenge glowing in Europe, Nazca carved in Peru. Signals across the globe like a cosmic language only visible from above. And then there is Easter Island. Gigantic stone statues, the Moai, staring blankly out to sea. Built by Polynesians with limited tools, the Moai echo the mystery of Stonehenge. Massive stones, incredible effort, no clear explanation. Why do humans, across time and space, keep building giant monuments out of stone? Is it universal psychology, a shared human obsession, or were they all answering to the same teachers? Now let us step into the wild side. Some researchers claim there are ley lines that connect these sites, mystical energy lines wrapping around the earth like a web. They argue Stonehenge sits on one of these nodes, linked to other ancient sites by invisible currents of power. Skeptics roll their eyes. But for believers, it is proof of a global network. A prehistoric internet, but instead of Wi-Fi, it is energy flowing through the ground. Picture this, an ancient mapmaker, thousands of years ago, charting the stars and drawing lines across the earth. He tells his people, build here, and here, and here. And so Stonehenge rises in England, pyramids rise in Egypt, statues rise on Easter Island. Different hands, different cultures, but one mysterious plan. Of course, modern historians argue this is just human nature. People everywhere saw the sky, felt awe, and built monuments to honor it. Stone was the most durable material they had, so naturally they used it. No need for ley lines or cosmic blueprints. But let us be honest, does not the idea of an ancient worldwide project sound more exciting? Now, for a little humor, imagine ancient project managers holding the first global conference call. Okay, team, Egypt, you are on pyramids duty. England, go with the circle design. Peru, draw some giant lines. Easter Island, faces, lots of faces. Let us make sure it is all visible from orbit. Break, suddenly human history feels like one massive group project. And as with any group project, no one really explains what the point was. Still, the similarities can't be ignored. Across the world, civilizations separated by oceans chose to build with massive stones, align their monuments with the stars, and pour generations of labor into structures that seemed to defy logic. Were they connected by travel, trade, or shared mythologies, or was there truly something greater guiding them? A universal whisper across humanity. Here's the question for you: if you walked from Stonehenge straight to the pyramids, to the Nazca Lines, to Easter Island, and saw the connections firsthand, what would you believe? That it is coincidence, or that ancient humanity was far more connected or far more guided than we ever imagined? Stonehenge, in this view, is not an isolated wonder. It is one chapter in a book written across the planet, in stone, by hands long gone but voices still echoing. And maybe, just maybe, the world's ancient monuments are speaking the same sentence, one we still can't translate. The mist rolls low across the plain, and you see them, robed figures in white, carrying staffs, chanting in strange rhythms. Torches flicker, drums echo, and in your imagination you have just stepped into one of the most famous and most enduring legends of Stonehenge, the Druids. For centuries, people believed Stonehenge was built by or for the Druids, the high priests of the ancient Celtic world. The idea began in the 17th and 18th centuries, when early scholars, puzzled by the stones, linked them to the mysterious priesthood described by Roman writers. To them, it made perfect sense. Who else but the wise Druids, masters of ritual and astronomy, could have created such a place? Now picture it. A circle of Druids standing beneath the rising sun, their voices rising in chant. They lift their staffs, call upon the gods of nature, and offer blessings to the tribe. In this vision, Stonehenge is not just a pile of rocks. It is their temple, their stage, their connection to the divine. But here's the twist. Modern archaeology says the Druids had nothing to do with Stonehenge. The monument was built at least 2,000 years before the Celtic Druids even existed. By the time Druids were practicing their rituals, Stonehenge was already ancient, a ruin even in their eyes. So why do we still imagine them here? The answer lies in myth and storytelling. The image of white-robed Druids chanting in Stonehenge is simply too powerful to let go. In fact, even today, modern neo-Druid groups gather at Stonehenge during the solstice, performing rituals and welcoming the sunrise just as people imagine their ancestors once did. Whether it is historically accurate does not matter. The symbol has become stronger than the truth. Think about what that means. Stonehenge is such a mystery that people fill in the gaps with whatever story fits their imagination. For early scholars, Druids were the perfect candidates, wise, mysterious, tied to nature and the stars. For us, the idea still resonates because it feels right. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Roman writers described Druids as astronomers, philosophers, and priests who conducted rituals in groves of oak trees. Some even accused them of human sacrifice. Imagine blending that reputation with the looming stones of Stonehenge, and you get a perfect recipe for dark, mystical drama. Now, let us play with the idea. Suppose the Druids did use Stonehenge, even if they did not build it. Imagine them discovering the circle, already ancient, and deciding it was a sacred gift from the gods. They perform their ceremonies here, not as architects, but as inheritors of a forgotten power? Would you see them as frauds, borrowing a stage they did not build, or as visionaries, preserving the magic of a place that already hummed with mystery? And of course, we can't skip a touch of humor. Picture a druid arriving at Stonehenge for the first time, shrugging and saying, "Well, we did not build it, but it is perfect for our solstice party. Let us claim it." Maybe history is less about ownership and more about who shows up at the right place, at the right time. The druid theory may not hold up historically, but it lives on in art, literature, and popular imagination. When people think of Stonehenge, many still see those white-robed figures raising their hands to the sky. It is a reminder that myths can outlast facts, and sometimes they are more powerful. So here's the question for you. Does it matter who actually built Stonehenge, or does the image of druids chanting in the mist give the monument a kind of meaning that archaeology alone can't? Either way, the stones do not answer. They stand silent, as if amused by the centuries of stories told about them. Druids or no druids, Stonehenge remains a temple in the imagination, a place where myth is as real as stone. Stand perfectly still in the center of Stonehenge. Close your eyes. The wind brushes your skin. The earth feels solid beneath your feet. And yet, some people swear you can feel a vibration, a low hum, a subtle pull, as if the ground itself is alive. This sensation is at the heart of one of the strangest theories about Stonehenge, that it is a node in a vast network of mystical energy lines crisscrossing the earth, what believers call ley lines. The concept of ley lines emerged in the early 20th century, but it quickly captured the imagination of mystics, New Age thinkers, and conspiracy theorists alike. The idea is simple. The earth is covered with invisible lines of power, like veins carrying energy. Ancient monuments, from the pyramids to the Nazca lines, are said to sit on these intersections. And Stonehenge, it is one of the biggest, brightest nodes of all. Now imagine the planet not as rock and water, but as a giant circuit board. Energy flows along invisible pathways, connecting sacred sites like wires. Stonehenge, in this view, is a power station, an ancient plug socket where humans once tapped into the Earth's current. Stand there during a solstice, and maybe, just maybe, you would feel the charge flowing through your body. Some believers go even further. They claim that the builders of Stonehenge knew about these energy lines. They could sense them like animals sense magnetic fields. Guided by instinct, or perhaps by knowledge long since lost, they placed their stones exactly where the currents met. In this theory, Stonehenge is less a mystery and more a tool, a way to harness the planet itself. Skeptics, of course, roll their eyes. They argue ley lines are nothing more than people connecting dots on a map, finding patterns where none exist. After all, with thousands of ancient sites around the world, some are bound to line up by chance. But to believers, the sheer number of alignments is too great to dismiss. Too many circles, too many straight lines stretching across continents. Coincidence or design? Now picture yourself in this world of energy. You are a shaman 4,000 years ago. You lead your tribe to the plain, staff in hand, because you can feel the hum beneath your feet. You command them to place stones here, not there, because here is where the earth breathes. At night, you chant inside the circle, and the air vibrates as if answering your voice. Would you believe you were channeling the earth's power, or would you simply feel it, unquestioned, as natural as the wind? And here's a modern twist. Even today, people travel to Stonehenge claiming they can sense the energy. Some describe tingling in their hands. Others feel dizzy, and a few say they hear faint humming when they press their ears to the stones. Scientists chalk it up to suggestion, but for those who experience it, the energy is real. Let us add a bit of humor to this cosmic circuitry. Imagine ancient tribes treating Stonehenge like a giant charging station. Hey, my spiritual battery's low. Mind if I plug in for a while? Or a tourist today standing with their phone raised, muttering, "Why can't I get Wi-Fi from this thing if it is really a power node?" Sometimes the mystery blends so well with modern life that the joke practically writes itself. Still, whether you laugh or believe, the ley line theory has staying power because it resonates with a deeper human truth. We all want to feel connected, to each other, to the earth, to something greater. Stonehenge, in its silence, seems to offer that. It stands at a crossroads not just of land, but of imagination. So here's the question for you. If you stood in Stonehenge at dawn and suddenly felt warmth rise through your feet, a pulse that made your skin tingle, would you dismiss it as nerves, or would you believe the ancients were right, that Stonehenge really is plugged into the hidden heartbeat of the earth? Step into the circle again, but this time, do not think of death or portals. Think of life. Think of birth, crops sprouting, animals multiplying, and the sheer miracle of survival in the ancient world. Because one of the strangest theories about Stonehenge is that it was not only a temple of the dead, but also a temple of fertility, a place where rituals were performed to ensure that life itself would continue. In the Neolithic world, fertility was not just about babies. It was about everything. Without fertile fields, no food. Without fertile animals, no meat, no milk. Without fertile women, no future generation to carry the tribe forward. So fertility rituals were often at the heart of religion. And Stonehenge, with its dramatic setting, alignments with the sun, and mysterious atmosphere, was the perfect stage. Some researchers point to carvings and artifacts found nearby that may symbolize fertility: axes, circles, spirals. To ancient eyes, these shapes were not just decoration. They were powerful symbols of life cycles. Add in the alignment of the stones with solstices, marking the turning points of the agricultural year, and you have a natural theater for fertility ceremonies. Now imagine it. The tribe gathers at midsummer, the longest day of the year. Women wear garlands of flowers. Men paint their bodies with earth. Drums echo, fires blaze, and chants rise into the night. Couples step forward, dancing in the shadows of the stones, invoking the gods for strong children and rich harvests. Perhaps even more intimate rituals took place, hidden from outsiders, acts meant to bind human life to the rhythms of nature. The stones, silent and immovable, watched as life itself was celebrated in its rawest form. Of course, the details are lost to history. We do not know exactly what was done or how, but the idea persists because Stonehenge seems tailor-made for it. Circles themselves are powerful fertility symbols, representing cycles, wombs, eternity. To step inside Stonehenge may have felt like entering a cosmic womb, where the people of the earth sought blessing from the sky. Some even suggest that Stonehenge could have been a place for arranged unions. Imagine leaders declaring, to strengthen our tribe, these two shall join. The ceremony happens inside the circle, under the watchful eyes of ancestors and gods. For a people who believed the land, the sky, and their children were all connected, such a ritual would have been sacred. Now let us sprinkle in humor, because fertility is not just sacred, it is also, well, human. Picture a shy couple being pushed toward the stones while the elders cheer. Go on, do your duty for the tribe, or imagine the world's oldest matchmaking service, Stonehenge as a prehistoric dating app, where swipes are replaced with chants and flower crowns. Still, beneath the jokes lies something powerful. Fertility rituals may sound primitive, even awkward to modern ears, but to people living on the edge of survival, they were deadly serious. A failed harvest meant starvation. A barren year meant despair. A fertile year meant life, joy, and continuity. Stonehenge may have been a way to channel that urgency into ceremony, transforming fear into hope. So here's the question for you. If you were part of that tribe, standing in the firelight as drums pounded and chants rose, would you join the ritual? Would you dance, sing, and celebrate fertility as the most sacred of gifts? Or would you stand in the shadows, embarrassed, pretending to be fascinated by the stones while everyone else, well, got on with the business of survival? Whether or not Stonehenge truly hosted fertility rites, the theory adds another dimension to its mystery. It becomes not only a monument of stone, but a monument to life itself, the eternal rhythm of birth, growth, and renewal, carved into the earth and aligned with the sky. Kneel down and touch the earth inside the circle. Beneath the grass, hidden from the casual eye, lie secrets as old as the stones themselves. Archaeologists have discovered that Stonehenge was once surrounded by hundreds of burial mounds. Cremated remains, carefully placed in pits, circle the monument like a silent crowd. To some, this is proof that Stonehenge was not just a temple of the living, it was a vast cemetery for the dead. Imagine it, thousands of years ago, families carried their loved ones here, wrapped in cloth, ashes held in decorated urns. They walked solemnly across the plain, torches flickering, chants echoing in the night air. As they entered the circle, they placed the remains into the earth, each burial adding another voice to the choir of ancestors. Stonehenge became not just a structure of stone, but a city of the dead. Some researchers believe the very first phase of Stonehenge, the simple circular ditch and wooden posts, was designed for burials. Over time, as the stones rose, the place evolved into a monumental cemetery, a sacred ground where life and death intertwined. The alignment with the solstices may not only have marked the seasons, but also symbolized rebirth, the rising and setting of the sun as a metaphor for life and death. Think about that for a moment. When you see the sun dip below the horizon, does not it feel like the end of something? And when it rises again, does not it feel like renewal? For ancient people, Stonehenge may have embodied that cycle. The dead were placed here in the heart of the monument, so that each solstice sunrise promised them eternal return. Now picture yourself as a villager thousands of years ago. Your father has died, and you have carried his remains to Stonehenge. You kneel in the cold earth, place the urn into a pit, and whisper a prayer. Around you, the stones rise like guardians, massive and eternal. Do you feel sorrow, or do you feel hope that your father's spirit will live on, joined with the sun and the stars? Modern excavations have uncovered burned bones of men, women, and children. Some were clearly of high status, their burials carefully marked. Others seemed ordinary. The sheer number suggests Stonehenge may have been a communal cemetery, open to many. In this sense, the monument was not just for kings or priests. It was for people, all people united in death. But here's where the debate begins. Some archaeologists argue that Stonehenge was not a cemetery in the traditional sense. Instead, they think it was a ceremonial ground where only certain chosen individuals were buried, perhaps priests, warriors, or tribal leaders. That would make the monument a place of exclusivity, a kind of elite necropolis. And then, of course, there is the imagery that captures imagination, the necropolis theory. Writers and filmmakers love to imagine Stonehenge as a city of the dead, where ghosts wander and spirits linger. Some even claim the stones themselves are tombstones, standing markers for souls. It is a dark but powerful vision. To lighten the mood, imagine the world's first cemetery tour guide leading visitors around. On your left, we have Chief Big Axe, cremated 3,000 years ago. On your right, Farmer John, inventor of the double-handled hoe. Please do not touch the exhibits, they are very, very ancient. Even in death, humans can't resist a little storytelling. But jokes aside, the cemetery theory makes Stonehenge deeply human. It is not about aliens, portals, or cosmic energy. It is about love, loss, and memory. It reminds us that even thousands of years ago, people cared deeply for their dead, marking their passing with rituals that gave meaning to grief. So here's the question for you: when you stand among the stones, do you feel you are in a temple for the gods or a graveyard for ancestors? And if the spirits of those ancient people still linger, are they watching you now, curious about why you have come to their eternal home? Step into Stonehenge not as a scientist or a tourist, but as a storyteller. Because beyond archaeology and astronomy, Stonehenge lives most vividly in myth. For centuries, people have filled its silence with tales, grand, magical, and sometimes downright bizarre. One of the oldest and most famous legends ties Stonehenge to Merlin, the wizard of Arthurian lore. According to medieval chroniclers, Merlin used his sorcery to transport the stones from Ireland, where giants had once arranged them. With a wave of his hand, the stones flew across the sea and landed neatly on Salisbury Plain. If you close your eyes inside the circle, you can almost picture it, a bearded wizard muttering spells as the stones lift into the air, the crowd gasping as each one thuds into place. Of course, historians roll their eyes at this. But here's the truth: myths are not meant to be accurate, they are meant to be powerful. And the Merlin story gave Stonehenge a place in the larger saga of Britain, linking it to kings, knights, and destiny. Other myths are even stranger. Some claim giants built Stonehenge. After all, who but a race of enormous beings could move such stones? Picture a giant scratching his head, grumbling, "Do these humans really need all these rocks stacked like this?" Then shrugging, he plants another stone like a child arranging toys. It is ridiculous, but oddly fitting. Stonehenge does feel larger than life. Then there are myths about healing. Medieval writers claimed the stones were magical, brought from faraway lands to cure disease. Pilgrims supposedly scraped bits of stone to make healing potions. Imagine the world's first wellness trend. Forget herbal tea, try powdered Stonehenge. Folklore also paints Stonehenge as a place of fairies and spirits. Locals whispered that on Midsummer's night, the stones would dance, circling under the moonlight. Stand too close, and you might be swept into their dance, vanishing forever. Picture that: you lean against a stone, yawn, and suddenly it starts to move beneath you. You would have the worst and strangest bedtime story ever. Even more chilling are ghostly legends. Some say Stonehenge is haunted by the souls buried nearby. Others believe the stones themselves are alive, watching, listening, judging. Stand in the circle at midnight, they warn, and you might hear whispers not of the wind, but of the dead. But myths are not just spooky tales. They give Stonehenge life beyond its stones. They make it more than a ruin. They turn it into a stage where Britain's identity, fears, and dreams have been played out for centuries. Think about it: if you were a peasant in the Middle Ages standing before these stones, how would you explain them? You did not have radiocarbon dating or laser surveys. You had imagination. You had stories. You said, "A wizard built it. Giants carried it." The stones dance when no one looks. And in those stories, the monument became not just history, but living magic. Here's a playful thought. Maybe myths are the real builders of Stonehenge. The stones gave the first outline, but it was the stories that gave it meaning. Without myths, Stonehenge is just rock. With them, it is alive. So here's the question for you: when you stand among the stones, do you see archaeology? Or do you hear legend? Do you believe the calculations of scientists or the whispers of giants, wizards, and fairies? Either way, the stones do not answer. But perhaps on a quiet night, if you press your ear to the cold surface, you might just hear Merlin chuckle. Raise your eyes above the stones. There they are, the sun and the moon, the twin rulers of the sky. To us, they are ordinary, almost taken for granted. But to the people who built Stonehenge, they were everything: clock, compass, and gods. And some believe Stonehenge was designed as their stage, where rituals honoring the sun and moon played out in grand spectacle. The alignments are undeniable. At midsummer, the rising sun shines directly over the heel stone, flooding the monument with golden light. At midwinter, the setting sun aligns perfectly between the great trilithons. And the moon, researchers have found that the layout of certain stones may correspond to lunar cycles, including the complex rhythm of eclipses. Imagine that the builders were not just chasing daylight, they were choreographing with the cosmos. Now, picture the scene thousands of years ago. At midsummer, the tribe gathers before dawn. The air is buzzing with anticipation. Drums pound, fire crackles, voices rise. And then, at the precise moment, the sun crests the horizon, light slicing between the stones. The crowd erupts in cheers, laughter, and tears. For them, this was not just sunrise, it was proof that the world still turned, that life would continue, that the gods had not abandoned them. At midwinter, the ritual shifts in tone. It is the darkest night, the longest shadow. People huddle close together, torches barely fighting back the dark. The air is heavy, the fields barren, the cold biting. And then, just as despair threatens to overwhelm, the sun sets in a perfect blaze between the stones. It is a promise: the darkness will not last forever. The light will return. Hope rekindled, the tribe celebrates survival. And the moon, imagine a different ritual. The tribe gathers not at dawn, but at night. The moon rises, silver and silent, casting eerie shadows across the stones. A chant begins, low and rhythmic, echoing through the circle. Perhaps a shaman points to the moon's phases, predicting the time of planting, the time of harvest, the time when eclipses would shroud the sky in mystery. To ancient eyes, this was nothing less than magic. Here's a thought for you: if you lived in that world, would you have seen these alignments as science, or as miracles? Would you feel awe at the builder's cleverness, or fear that the sun might one day fail to rise unless properly honored? Now add a little humor. Imagine the anxiety of being the shaman in charge of predicting the sunrise alignment. The whole tribe is staring, waiting for the light to pierce the stones. If it does not, awkward silence. Maybe someone mutters, "Guess the gods are angry again." And you, sweating bullets, mumble, "No, just wait. Any second now." Talk about job pressure. But the rituals were not just about spectacle, they were about survival. Tracking the sun told farmers when to sow seeds. Tracking the moon guided fishing, hunting, and timekeeping. Stonehenge was more than religion. It was practical, woven into daily life. Yet the rituals elevated it beyond practicality, turning calendars into ceremonies and survival into celebration. Even today, thousands gather at Stonehenge for the solstices. They dance, they sing, they cheer the rising sun, just as people may have done 4,000 years ago. The line between past and present blurs. For a moment, you can almost feel yourself part of the same rhythm, the same awe, the same eternal stage play of light and shadow. So here's the question for you: when you watch the sun rise through the heel stone, do you see a clever alignment or a divine promise? And when the moon casts its glow across the stones, do you see cold rock or a theater where the sky itself is performing? The stones remain silent, but their stage directions are written in light, and the play continues with every dawn and dusk. Look at the stones again, not as monuments or temples, but as symbols. Massive, immovable, dominating the horizon, they are power carved into the earth. Some scholars suggest that Stonehenge was not just a spiritual site, but a political one, a stage where leaders proved authority, forged alliances, and displayed control over land and people. Think about it. Building Stonehenge required thousands of hours of labor, hundreds of people, and a level of organization that was extraordinary for the time. To command that effort, someone had to hold enormous authority. Stonehenge may have been less about the stones themselves and more about the message. We are powerful enough to move mountains. We are united enough to raise the impossible. Now imagine yourself in that society. You stand in the crowd as a chief or priest raises his arms. Behind him, the circle of stones towers over everyone. The message is clear: the gods are with him, the land is his, and your loyalty is expected. The monument itself becomes propaganda, stone carved into politics. Some researchers argue that Stonehenge marked a unification. The smaller blue stones from Wales and the massive sarsens from local quarries may symbolize the coming together of different tribes. By dragging their stones into the same circle, rival groups merged under one monument, one shared identity. Stonehenge, in this reading, is less a temple and more a treaty. But let us make this vivid. Picture two tribes, once at odds, meeting on the plain. Instead of battling, their leaders strike a deal: bring your stones, we will bring ours, and together we will build something the world will never forget. The circle rises, and suddenly, enemies become allies, bound by stone. It is politics, but grand and enduring. Of course, politics always comes with ceremony. Imagine great feasts held here, where leaders showed off wealth and power. Whole animals roasted over fires. Songs sung, gifts exchanged. The stones became backdrops for negotiations, marriages, and oaths. To stand inside the circle was to stand inside the heart of power. And yes, there is room for humor here too. Imagine an ancient leader bragging, "You think your hut is impressive? Check out my stone circle." Took us only 30 years to finish, beat that, or picture a frustrated villager grumbling. All this work just so the chief can have the biggest meeting hall in the world. Politics has not changed much in 4,000 years. But there is something profound in this theory. If Stonehenge was political, then it represents one of humanity's first experiments with large-scale unity and governance. It shows that even in the Stone Age, people were not just surviving, they were building symbols of identity, power, and cooperation. Now ask yourself, if you were alive then, would you see Stonehenge as a temple or as a throne? Would you kneel in reverence to the gods? Or bow in obedience to the leaders who commanded the stones into place? Stonehenge, in this view, is not just a mystery of how it was built. It is a message of why. Power leaves monuments, and few monuments shout louder than a circle of stones that has stood for millennia. Close your eyes and listen. What do you hear? Not silence, not just wind. Imagine instead the pounding of drums, the ring of stone against stone, the clap of hands, the rising chant of hundreds of voices. Because one theory suggests Stonehenge was not only a temple of worship or a cemetery of the dead, it was also a place of music, dance, and festival. Archaeological evidence supports the idea. Animal bones found nearby suggest great feasts took place at Stonehenge. Pig bones show signs of roasting. Deer bones bear cut marks from feasts. Some were brought from miles away, meaning people traveled long distances not just for ritual but to eat, drink, and celebrate together. In other words, Stonehenge might have been the world's oldest party venue. Picture the scene. Fires blaze in the night. Roasting meat sends smoke curling into the sky. Drums thunder. Flutes made of bone whistle sharp and high. Voices rise in harmony. Men and women dance between the stones. Faces painted. Bodies moving in rhythm. Children laugh, elders sing, and for one night, survival gives way to joy. Stonehenge becomes not just a circle of stones, but a circle of life. Some researchers even suggest the acoustics of the monument, its strange echoes and amplifications, were designed for performance. Imagine chants rolling around the circle, blending into a hypnotic hum. Imagine the pounding of drums amplified by the stones until it shakes your chest. For people without theaters or stadiums, this would have been breathtaking. Now pause and ask yourself, if you were there, would you join the dance? Would you let the music pull you into the circle, your feet stamping the earth as flames flickered on the stones? Or would you stand at the edge, watching, wondering if you had stepped into something more than a party, something sacred disguised as celebration? Because that is the real point. For ancient people, there was no sharp line between festival and ritual. Celebration was worship, and worship was celebration. Music honored the gods. Dancing echoed the rhythms of nature. Feasting gave thanks for abundance. In that sense, Stonehenge was both temple and theater, altar and stage. Of course, festivals also mean fun, and here's where humor sneaks in. Imagine an ancient villager, a little too much fermented mead in his system, climbing onto a stone and shouting, "I am the sun god now," before falling into a pile of pig bones. Or think of kids daring each other to tap the stones like drums, annoying the elders who hiss, "Respect the monument, some things never change, every party has rowdy guests." But even in its joy, the festival theory carries weight. It reminds us that Stonehenge was not just about fear of the unknown or reverence for the dead. It was also about life, community, and happiness. It was about people coming together to eat, laugh, and dance under the stars. For a brief moment, all worries, hunger, war, cold, fell away, replaced by music and movement. Today, if you visit Stonehenge during the solstice, you will see something similar. Thousands gather, drums beat, chants rise, people dance. It feels less like an archaeological site and more like a living festival, echoing with the same energy that may have filled it thousands of years ago. So here's the question for you: when you imagine Stonehenge, do you see a cold ruin, or do you hear the music still echoing, faint but insistent, waiting for you to join the dance? Lift your eyes once more above the stones. Imagine not just gods or myths, but calculation, careful, deliberate, brilliant calculation. because one of the most enduring theories about Stonehenge is that it was a primitive observatory, an ancient calendar carved in stone. The alignments are striking. The heel stone frames the midsummer sunrise perfectly. The great trilithons align with the midwinter sunset. Other stones mark lunar standstills, rare events where the moon rises at its most extreme points. To you, standing there, it feels less like chance and more like intention. These stones are not random. They are instruments. Now imagine yourself thousands of years ago, a farmer with no written calendar, no clock, no phone to remind you when to sow seeds. How do you know when the seasons turn? You look to the sky, and if you have Stonehenge, you step inside the circle and read the heavens through stone. The rising sun between stones tells you, it is time. Some researchers believe Stonehenge was used to predict eclipses. The spacing of certain stones and pits, called Aubrey holes, matches the complex cycles of the moon and sun. Imagine being an ancient astronomer, standing in the circle, tracking shadows, counting days, and one night, announcing tomorrow the sun will vanish. To the tribe, it must have looked like pure magic. To you, it was science. Picture the tribe gathered, breathless, as the sky darkens. People cry out, terrified, certain the gods are angry. But you, the astronomer priest, raise your arms and chant calmly. When the sun returns, your power is confirmed. Knowledge has become authority. Stonehenge, in this way, is not just stone, it is science turned into spectacle. Of course, skeptics argue that while Stonehenge may track solstices, its ability to predict complex celestial events is exaggerated. They point out that many alignments may be coincidence. But even they admit the builders had a keen awareness of the sky. In a world without light pollution, the stars were as familiar as the earth. Stonehenge captured that relationship, fixing it in stone for all to see. Now let us add a little humor. Imagine the world's first calendar reminder. Instead of your phone buzzing, you had a shaman yelling, "Hey, the sun's in line with the stones, time to plant barley." Or imagine explaining Stonehenge to a modern person. It is basically Google Calendar. But heavier. Suddenly, the monument feels surprisingly relatable. But humor aside, the observatory theory gives Stonehenge an aura of genius. It was not just myth or ritual, it was knowledge. It shows that the builders were not simply worshipping. They were observing, calculating, recording. They understood that survival depended on reading the sky, and they built a monument to ensure no one forgot. So here's the question for you. If you walked into Stonehenge and saw the sun rise exactly where it should, would you feel you were standing in a temple? Or inside the oldest science lab in the world? Either way, the stones remain, silent instruments pointing skyward, waiting for those who know how to read their language. Stand before one of the great Sarsen stones. It looms above you, taller than a two-story house, weighing as much as 25 tons. Now ask yourself the same question that has puzzled generations. How on earth did people, armed with nothing more than ropes, wood, and muscle, move and raise this monster? This is perhaps the most enduring mystery of Stonehenge. Theories abound. Some researchers believe logs were used as rollers, with teams of people pulling ropes as the stones slowly moved across the land. Others suggest sledges dragged across greased tracks of animal fat. Another theory imagines the stones floated on rafts along rivers before being hauled over land again. Each method is possible, but each raises the same question: how did they do it with such precision without modern tools? And it is not just the Sarsens. The smaller bluestones, weighing up to 4 tons each, were transported all the way from Wales, over 150 miles. Think about that. No wheels, no iron tools, no trucks, no cranes. Just determination, ingenuity, and sheer grit. Imagine yourself part of the crew. You have been assigned to drag a 4-ton rock across hills, forests, and rivers. Would you grumble? Would you give up? Or would you push on, knowing that the circle must rise? Now picture the process of raising the stones. Some archaeologists believe ramps of earth were built. The stones were dragged up the ramps, tilted into holes, and then levered upright. Once standing, lintels, those horizontal stones, were placed on top, fitted with mortise and tenon joints carved by hand. It is as if carpentry was scaled up to monumental size. Imagine the cheers when a trilithon finally stood, balanced and complete. The crowd must have roared, the ground shaking with their joy. But not everyone believes in simple explanations. Some fringe theorists argue that ancient builders used sound vibrations, levitating the stones with chance. Others whisper about lost technologies, or even extraterrestrial help. It sounds wild, but when you stare at those stones perfectly balanced, you almost want to believe. Could it really just have been ropes and sweat, or was there something more? Here's a moment of humor for you. Imagine being the unlucky worker who lets go of the rope too soon. The chief glares, "We told you not to drop the sacred stone." Or picture a group arguing, "We should push left." "No, right. I said lift, not drop." Human error existed even in prehistory. The miracle is not just that they built Stonehenge. It is that they survived building it. Still, whether through brute force or brilliance, the feat is undeniable. Stonehenge is proof of collective will. It shows what humans can accomplish when they work together, even without machines. And perhaps that is the real magic, not levitation, not aliens, but cooperation on a scale almost beyond belief. So here's the question for you: when you look at those towering stones, do you see sweat and muscle, or do you see something more? Do you believe the builders dragged them with ropes and ramps? Or do you wonder if a secret, lost knowledge was at work? The stones do not tell. They simply stand, a testament to effort, ingenuity, and mystery. Look at the stones again, massive, precise, aligned with the heavens. For some, the explanation is simple: humans built them. But for others, there is only one possible answer: aliens. Yes, according to one of the strangest and most popular theories, Stonehenge was designed, or at least guided, by visitors from the stars. The argument goes like this: how could people without wheels, cranes, or metal tools possibly transport stones weighing up to 25 tons? How could they place them so perfectly? Aligned with solstices and lunar cycles, surely, skeptics argue, they must have had help from a more advanced intelligence. And if not humans, then who? Some claim the stones were a landing site for extraterrestrial ships, a kind of prehistoric airport runway. Imagine a UFO hovering, beams of light shining down, stones glowing as they are set into place. To those who believe, Stonehenge is less a temple and more a beacon, a message carved into earth to signal across the galaxy. Others suggest aliens did not just build Stonehenge, but taught humans how to do it. They gave early civilizations knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and engineering far beyond their time. Stonehenge, in this view, is not an alien artifact, but an alien classroom. The stones are blackboards. The alignments are lessons, the entire monument a lecture written in stone. Now, imagine yourself thousands of years ago, standing among your tribe when a glowing craft descends from the sky. Beings emerge taller than humans, eyes shining, voices humming. They point to the plane, gesture at the stones, and show you how to raise them with technology or powers you can't explain. Would you see gods or visitors? Would you worship or learn? Of course, scientists dismiss this theory. They argue there is no evidence, no alien artifacts, no strange metals, no messages carved into the stones. They point out that humans have always been clever, capable of extraordinary feats with simple tools and collective effort. But the allure of aliens persists, because it makes the impossible seem possible. And here's where the fun comes in. Imagine aliens holding a galactic meeting. Okay, Earth team, you build pyramids in Egypt, lines in Peru. And in England, give them a stone circle. That'll confuse archaeologists for millennia, or picture a modern tourist muttering, if aliens really built this. Could not they have left a manual? The comedy practically writes itself. Still, the alien theory is powerful because it raises a deeper question: why do we humans doubt ourselves? Is it so hard to believe our ancestors could achieve this without extraterrestrial help? Or does believing in aliens give us a sense of connection to something larger, something cosmic? Here's the question for you: when you stand in Stonehenge and gaze at the sky, do you see the genius of human hands, or the fingerprints of beings from beyond the stars? The stones do not answer. They simply stand, timeless and mysterious, leaving us to wonder whether humanity built them alone, or whether we had a little help from the heavens. Step into the circle not as a scientist, but as a believer. Imagine the stones not as architecture, but as symbols, each one a doorway, a prayer carved into the earth, a bridge between humans and the gods. Because for many, the simplest explanation of Stonehenge is also the most profound. It was a temple. To the people who built it, life was fragile. Crops could fail, sickness could spread, storms could destroy. In a world without medicine or science, the only hope was faith, appeasing the forces of nature they believed were divine. Stonehenge, in this theory, was a sacred altar, a place to stand between heaven and earth and beg for mercy, blessing, or guidance. The circle itself is symbolic. Circles have no beginning and no end, making them perfect representations of eternity, the cycle of life and death. Each stone was not just a rock, but a pillar of meaning, perhaps representing gods, ancestors, or cosmic forces. When you stood inside, you were not just in a field. You were in the universe's cathedral. Now imagine the ceremonies. Priests in animal skins chant as smoke from burning herbs curls into the sky. The tribe gathers in silence, offerings laid at the base of the stones. Food, weapons, maybe even lives. Hands rise, voices cry out, and the circle becomes an amplifier of belief, every vibration echoing into the heavens. To those inside, it must have felt like standing in the very presence of gods. Some researchers suggest the alignments with the sun and moon were part of this symbolism. The rising sun through the heel stone was not just astronomy. It was divinity made visible. Each solstice was a sacred appointment, a meeting between mortals and celestial beings. Imagine waiting all year for that one moment, when the light pierced the stones, and believing that the gods were answering. To you, standing there now, it might seem like superstition. But pause and ask yourself, is not faith always about reaching for the unseen? The unprovable, whether through prayer, ritual, or song, humans seek connection. And in Stonehenge, the builders may have given their yearning a shape in stone. Of course, religion has always had its humor too. Picture a villager muttering during a long ritual, "Do the gods really need this many chants before they listen?" Or imagine someone accidentally tripping during a solemn ceremony, only to become the chosen fool of the day. Even in sacred spaces, laughter finds a way. But beyond the jokes, this theory makes Stonehenge profoundly human. It was not built by giants or aliens, but by people who wanted to reach beyond themselves. People who looked at the sky and wondered. People who feared storms and prayed for harvests. People who loved, lost, and hoped. Stonehenge, then, is less a riddle and more a mirror, reflecting our eternal hunger for meaning. So here's the question for you. When you stand in the circle, do you see cold stone? Or do you feel the echoes of prayer, whispered across millennia? Do you hear silence, or a chorus of voices rising toward gods who may, or may not, have answered? The stones won't tell you. They stand as they always have, silent, immovable, sacred. The rest is up to you to believe. Step out of the ancient world for a moment and into the modern age. Strangely enough, Stonehenge has never stopped living in human imagination. It is not just a pile of stones in a field. It has become a global icon, woven into music, movies, literature, art, and even jokes. Few monuments, ancient or modern, have inspired such a bizarre and lasting place in popular culture. Think of movies first. From epic fantasies to science fiction, Stonehenge shows up whenever creators need instant mystery. It appears in films as a portal, a sacred site, even a weapon. In one story, it is linked to time travel. In another, it becomes the key to alien technology. Directors love it because it does not need explanation. The moment you see those stones, you feel myth, power, and mystery. Then there is music. In the 1980s, the comedy rock band Spinal Tap famously parodied Stonehenge with a tiny stage prop that descended during their concert. Instead of awe, it brought laughter, turning the monument into a rock and roll punchline. Yet even that parody proves the point. Stonehenge is so iconic that even a miniature version instantly carries meaning. And beyond parody, many musicians have written songs about Stonehenge as a mystical, powerful place. In literature, Stonehenge has been everything from a backdrop for fantasy novels to a symbol in poetry. Writers use it as shorthand for mystery, for the ancient world, for lost wisdom. Children's books turn it into magical playgrounds. Thrillers use it as a clue in global conspiracies. If you need a setting that feels ancient and strange, Stonehenge is ready. Art, too, has claimed Stonehenge. Painters, sculptors, photographers, all drawn to its silhouette, from romantic images of moonlight bathing the stones, to surreal visions of them floating in the cosmos. The monument is endlessly reimagined. Even advertisements use it, selling beer, cars, vacations. Stonehenge has become both sacred and commercial, a paradox carved into culture. Now imagine yourself as a tourist. You buy a Stonehenge snow globe or a t-shirt that says, "I got rocked at Stonehenge." You laugh, you pose for selfies. You share them online. For a moment, you are part of the endless cycle of reinterpreting the monument. You are not an archaeologist or a priest. You are a meme maker, continuing the tradition of making Stonehenge mean whatever we want it to mean. And here's the humorous twist: Stonehenge has been photoshopped into space battles, football stadiums, even as a set of giant dominoes about to topple. People can't resist playing with its image. It is as if the stones themselves invite parody, too solemn, too mysterious, too tempting not to poke fun at. But beneath the jokes lies something powerful. Stonehenge endures in culture because it embodies mystery. In a world where almost everything is explained, solved or mapped, Stonehenge resists. It remains unsolved, unknowable, a blank slate onto which every generation writes its own stories. So here's the question for you: when you see Stonehenge in a movie, a song, or a meme, do you laugh or do you feel a little thrill? Do you dismiss it as just pop culture? Or do you recognize that even in parody, its power survives? The stones stand in their field, silent, while humans continue to turn them into legend. Artwork, punchline, and dream. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all, not what Stonehenge meant to the past, but what it continues to mean to us now. Stand once more inside the circle. You have walked through theories of astronomy, religion, politics, aliens, fertility, feasts, death, and music. You have imagined giants, wizards, shamans, and engineers. And yet, after all of it, one truth remains: we still do not really know what Stonehenge was for. That is the greatest mystery of all. Archaeology has given us clues. We know when the stones were set, roughly how they were moved, and what was buried nearby. We know the alignments with the sun and the moon. But none of this answers the deeper question: why did people dedicate so much time, energy, and imagination to this place? Some say Stonehenge is too complex to have had only one purpose. Perhaps it was all of these things at once: observatory, temple, cemetery, stage. A place where life and death, science and myth, politics and faith all overlapped. In that sense, maybe Stonehenge is not a puzzle to solve, but a mirror of humanity itself, contradictory, mysterious, and endlessly layered. Now imagine the builders watching us from across time. They see tourists snapping photos, scholars arguing in conferences, mystics meditating, pranksters photoshopping the stones into memes. Do they laugh? Do they shake their heads? Or do they smile, knowing that the monument worked exactly as intended? Not to give answers, but to spark wonder. There is a lesson in that. In a world obsessed with explanations, Stonehenge resists. It reminds us that not everything must be solved, not every mystery cracked open. Sometimes the power lies in the questions themselves. The stones whisper, "It is enough that you wonder." And here's where a little humor slips in. Imagine if, one day, archaeologists found a carved stone with ancient graffiti: "We just built this for fun." The entire academic world would collapse. Or picture a builder scratching into the lintel: "Future humans, stop overthinking." Sometimes the joke may be on us. But until that happens, Stonehenge will remain what it has always been: a canvas for imagination. Each generation paints it anew: giants, gods, aliens, scientists, poets. And maybe that is why it has lasted so long. Because unlike answers, imagination never grows old. So here's the final question for you. If you could ask the builders of Stonehenge one thing, what would it be? And if they could answer, would you really want to know? Or would you prefer to keep the mystery alive? The stones stand silent, as always. They do not explain. They do not reveal. They endure. And maybe that is the point. Stonehenge is not a solution. It is an invitation. And now, as the night fades and our journey among the stones draws to an end, take a deep breath. You have walked with me through shadows of history, echoes of myth, sparks of science, and whispers of the unknown. Together, we have peered into every theory, some brilliant, some strange, some downright funny. Yet through it all, the stones of Stonehenge have remained what they always were, silent, patient, eternal. I want to thank you for staying with me until this very moment. It is not easy to listen this long, especially in a world full of noise and distraction. But you chose to journey here, to spend your time with me in the company of mysteries older than memory. That means something, and I do not take it lightly. Before we part, I want to leave you with a question. You have heard theories of astronomy, religion, politics, music, feasts, death, fertility, aliens, and more. But if you had to choose, what do you believe? Was Stonehenge a temple of the sun, a city of the dead, a political monument, a prehistoric concert hall, or maybe something we have not even imagined yet? Write your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your voice, your ideas, your imagination. After all, the mystery of Stonehenge does not belong only to scholars or archaeologists. It belongs to all of us. Every theory, every story, every joke adds another layer to its meaning. Your perspective matters. And if you would like, tell me what other mysteries you would want me to explore next. Maybe the pyramids of Giza, the Nazca Lines, the lost city of Atlantis, or something even stranger. This channel is not just about answers, it is about journeys. And I would love for you to guide the next one. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who love a good mystery. It helps me more than you know, and it keeps this journey alive. So here we stand, you and I, at the edge of history, looking at stones that refuse to tell their secrets. But maybe that is the beauty of it. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be lived. And tonight, we have lived it together. Thank you for walking with me under the shadow of Stonehenge. Sleep well, dream deep, and remember, the stones are still waiting, patient and silent, for the next traveler bold enough to ask them why.